Retired Master Chief Petty Officer Ethan Cross stood on the deck of his aging 34-foot salvage vessel at Charleston Maritime Center before dawn, preparing equipment for another day of routine commercial diving work. A profound professional decline from his 20 years as a Navy SEAL, conducting underwater demolition and maritime special operations across multiple combat theaters. At 44 years old, Ethan had left the teams 3 years ago after a mission in the South China Sea resulted in the catastrophic loss of 2 teammates during a submarine extraction operation that went devastatingly wrong. The official Navy investigation had cleared him of wrongdoing, determining that the equipment failure and unexpected enemy contact were beyond operational control. But Ethan carried the weight fundamentally differently. He was the team leader who made the tactical call that put them in the water at that specific time and location. The Navy had offered him another command position, recognizing his exceptional operational record spanning 15 successful deployments. He took retirement instead, unable to shake the faces of the 2 men who didn't surface. Men who trusted his judgment completely. PTSD affected between 11–20% of veterans who served in recent conflicts, with symptoms including intrusive memories, flashbacks, nightmares, hypervigilance, emotional numbness, and difficulty regulating emotions that could severely impair judgment and daily functioning. Ethan experienced all documented symptoms with crushing intensity, particularly survivor's guilt that manifested as persistent belief that he should have died instead of his teammates. His companion was Thor, a 9-year-old German Shepherd who'd been Ethan's K9 partner for 4 deployments spanning Iraq, Afghanistan, and maritime interdiction operations in hostile waters. Thor had specialized in underwater detection operations, trained to locate submerged explosives, weapons caches, and contraband during maritime special operations using specialized K9 diving equipment developed specifically for military working dogs. When Ethan retired under medical discharge related to psychological trauma rather than the physical injury, Thor came with him under the military working dog adoption program. But the transition to civilian life had been profoundly difficult for both operator and dog. German Shepherds were renowned for their loyalty, intelligence, and ability to maintain operational capabilities despite aging and retirement, characteristics that made them exceptional military working dogs, but also meant they struggled when their purpose was removed. Thor still exhibited constant operational behaviors, alerting to anomalies during their morning beach walks along Charleston's coastline, maintaining tactical vigilance that had no practical outlet in civilian contexts, exhibiting the restless energy characteristic of a warrior with no war to fight and no mission to complete. Ethan's salvage diving business barely survived financially on contracts to recover lost anchors for recreational boaters, inspect dock pilings for marine construction companies, and occasionally assist Charleston Police Department with underwater evidence recovery during criminal investigations. It was honest work that paid poorly, averaging approximately $1,500 monthly after expenses, and kept him in the water, which remained the only environment where his mind quieted enough to sleep without nightmares. He'd accepted with resignation that this was his life now. Small contracts that barely covered boat maintenance, a vessel that leaked and required constant repairs, a German Shepherd who deserved better than living on a salvage boat, and survivor's guilt that wouldn't fade regardless of how many successful dives he completed. On a cold January morning, when temperatures hovered in the low 40s and fog reduced visibility across Charleston Harbor, Ethan was conducting a routine sonar survey for Atlantic marine construction, checking the seabed for obstacles and debris before a major pier expansion project. The work was mindless by design. He ran systematic sonar grid patterns, marked anything metallic showing on displays, and provided coordinates for the construction crew to avoid during pile-driving operations. 8 miles offshore in approximately 110 feet of water, his sonar equipment picked up a massive metallic signature that immediately violated normal patterns, far larger than typical debris or wreckage, showing a clear vessel shape approximately 200 feet long with distinctive structural features suggesting intact hull. Ethan's dormant tactical instincts activated instantly, despite 3 years of forced suppression. This wasn't on any of his navigation charts. It wasn't listed in NOAA's comprehensive wreck database that catalogued every documented shipwreck along the Atlantic coast. A vessel this size, this close to Charleston's major shipping channel, should absolutely be documented for navigational safety. Either it had been deliberately kept off official records for reasons related to national security or classified operations, or it was recent enough that maritime surveys hadn't yet catalogued its presence. But the sonar signature showed extensive marine growth and encrustation patterns suggesting decades underwater. Ethan made a decision that violated his contract scope and potentially jeopardized future work with Atlantic Marine Construction. He anchored his vessel directly above the sonar anomaly and prepared for an investigative dive to 110 feet depth, beyond recreational limits, but well within his SEAL training parameters. He descended with Thor equipped in the specialized K9 diving harness Ethan had meticulously maintained from their SEAL operational days, equipment representing one of the few connections to his former life that he couldn't abandon. The partnership grounded him psychologically when anxiety threatened to surface during solitary diving operations. At 110 feet depth, Ethan's powerful dive lights penetrated the murky Atlantic water to illuminate something that stopped his breathing and triggered immediate operational recognition. A submarine, approximately 200 feet long, sitting upright on the sandy bottom, remarkably intact despite obvious age indicated by decades of marine biological growth covering the pressure hull. The design was unmistakably American. World War II era, based on the distinctive conning tower configuration, deck gun placement, and hull proportions characteristic of Gato-class or Balao-class fleet submarines that formed the backbone of the Pacific submarine fleet during 1943 to 1945. But this submarine shouldn't exist at these coordinates. Every United States Navy submarine lost during World War II was comprehensively documented, officially catalogued in military records, and often designated as protected war graves under federal law. There were no unknown American submarine losses. The Navy had accounted for every vessel. Ethan began systematically photographing the wreck using underwater camera equipment when Thor exhibited behavior that made Ethan's pulse spike with recognition. The German Shepherd was alerting with rigid body posture, focused attention locked on a specific section near the submarine's conning tower, exhibiting the same persistent, unwavering pattern he'd used during explosive and weapons detection operations across 4 combat deployments. Ethan's SEAL training immediately overrode everything else: commercial diving protocols, contract obligations, personal safety considerations. If Thor was alerting on this wreck using detection behaviors conditioned for underwater ordnance, there was either explosive material present or something else triggering the dog's specialized training with mission-critical significance. Ethan photographed the specific area Thor was focused on, a sealed hatch near the conning tower that appeared significantly less corroded than surrounding structures, suggesting it had maintained watertight integrity for decades, and made the tactical decision to surface immediately without further investigation. Something about this submarine violated every pattern Ethan understood about World War II submarine losses, and his operational experience emphasized investigating properly with appropriate resources before involving anyone else who might compromise the site. Back on his salvage vessel, Ethan immediately contacted Dr. James Holloway, a distinguished naval historian at the Citadel, specializing in World War II submarine warfare and Pacific Fleet operations. He showed Dr. Holloway the underwater photographs and provided exact GPS coordinates of the discovery. Dr. Holloway's reaction combined professional shock with immediate historical recognition. That hull configuration, conning tower design, and deck gun placement match Gato-class or Balao-class fleet submarines from 1943-1945, the workhorses of the Pacific submarine campaign. But every American submarine lost during World War II is accounted for in official Navy casualty records. This vessel shouldn't exist as an undocumented loss. Where exactly did you find this? Ethan provided the precise coordinates. 8 miles offshore from Charleston, South Carolina, at 110 feet depth. Dr. Holloway spent 3 intensive hours cross-referencing with Navy Historical Center archives, submarine loss records, patrol reports, and casualty databases. He called Ethan back with genuine confusion evident. There's absolutely no record of any United States submarine going down at those coordinates. The closest documented American submarine loss on the Atlantic coast is USS R-12, which sank during training exercises off Key West in 1943. What you found at those Charleston coordinates simply shouldn't be there, according to every official record I can access. Ethan and Dr. Holloway organized a proper expedition within 72 hours, partnering with the Naval History and Heritage Command in Washington, D.C., who dispatched a specialized team of Navy archaeologists and historians to investigate. The Navy's immediate interest suggested they recognized potential significance beyond historical curiosity. During the second dive, with Navy archaeologists systematically documenting the site using professional underwater archaeology protocols, Thor alerted again, this time with such focused intensity that Ethan knew immediately they were close to whatever the German Shepherd had detected. The team concentrated their investigation on the sealed hatch near the conning tower that Thor had identified. Using specialized underwater tools designed for archaeological artifact recovery, they carefully opened the corroded hatch mechanism without damaging potential evidence. Inside the watertight compartment, protected from decades of saltwater corrosion, a waterproof container marked with stenciled lettering USS Swordfish with hull number SS-193 and dated June 1945. Ethan's hands trembled underwater as he read the markings, his SEAL training providing immediate historical context. USS Swordfish was officially declared lost in January 1945 during combat operations near Okinawa, presumed destroyed by Japanese depth charges with all 89 crew members lost. The Navy had conducted formal memorial services. Families had buried empty coffins. Swordfish was memorialized at submarine memorials across the United States as a Pacific War casualty. But the submarine sitting at 110 feet off Charleston's coast couldn't possibly be Swordfish, because USS Swordfish supposedly went down 7,000 miles away in the Pacific Theater. The team extracted the container using proper archaeological documentation protocols, and brought it immediately to the surface for controlled examination. Opening the container in Dr. Holloway's laboratory at the Citadel under controlled environmental conditions revealed contents that left Ethan genuinely speechless. Classified operational documents marked Top Secret, Eyes Only, with Department of Defense stamps, dated May through June 1945, detailing a covert mission that had never been declassified in 80 years. The documents described USS Swordfish's actual final assignment, a secret mission designated Operation Valkyrie to extract Nazi scientists, and classified weapons technology documents from a German U-boat that had surrendered off the Carolina coast during the final chaotic weeks of World War II in Europe. The operation was so highly classified that even Swordfish's crew hadn't known complete details. They believed they were conducting routine coastal patrol. The German submarine had intelligence about advanced rocket technology, jet propulsion systems, and other weapons developments that the United States wanted secured immediately before Soviet forces could claim the scientists or technology. This operation would later feed into what became known as Operation Paperclip, the classified program bringing Nazi scientists to America. Handwritten operational logs from Commander Earl Gallagher, Swordfish's commanding officer, documented a devastating sequence. The transfer of German scientists and classified materials was successful on June 10, 1945. But during the return voyage to Charleston Naval Base on June 12, 1945, nearly a month after Germany's official surrender, USS Swordfish suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure. Commander Gallagher's final log entry, written in increasingly shaky handwriting, suggesting he wrote while the submarine was actively sinking, read, 0245 hours, catastrophic failure in high-pressure air system, rupture in main air manifold causing uncontrollable flooding in multiple compartments simultaneously. Damage control teams unable to isolate the failure, cannot maintain trim or buoyancy. 0302 hours. Blowing all ballast tanks, but we're still going down. Flooding has reached control room. Electrical systems failing, unable to surface despite emergency procedures. Mo 3 white heat hours. Current position approximately 8 miles offshore from Charleston, based on dead reckoning navigation. Water depth 110 feet. Vessel is sinking. No hope of recovery. Operation Valkyrie materials secured in forward torpedo room waterproof container. Someone must recover them for national security. German scientists Dr. Wilhelm Kessler and Dr. Ernst Hoffmann, alive in sealed compartments, but will perish with us. Navy must know. We completed the assigned mission successfully. Intelligence materials are aboard and preserved. 89 souls aboard USS Swordfish. If this vessel is ever found, we did not die at Okinawa, as our families will be told. We died, completing a classified mission bringing home intelligence that will help win the peace and Cold War. Tell our families we served with honor to the very last moment. Commander Earl T. Gallagher, Commanding Officer, USS Swordfish, SS 193, United States Navy, June 12, 1945. Ethan read the logs with tears streaming into his dive mask during subsequent documentation dives, his own survivor's guilt resonating powerfully with Commander Gallagher's final words. The Navy had deliberately staged Swordfish's loss at Okinawa, 7,000 miles away, to maintain operational security around what would become Operation Paperclip, the highly controversial classified program to bring Nazi scientists to America. 89 submariners had died completing a mission so secret that their families were deliberately lied to about where and how they perished. For 80 years, Swordfish's crew had been memorialized as casualties of the Pacific War when they actually went down 8 miles from Charleston, within sight of home, carrying classified secrets that couldn't be publicly acknowledged. The critical turning point came when Department of Defense officials contacted Ethan directly through Naval History and Heritage Command. They wanted to immediately classify the entire discovery, seal the wreck site as a restricted military zone, and continue the operational security cover-up that had lasted 8 decades. Senior DoD officials argued that revealing the truth would expose Operation Paperclip's full scope, including the extraction of war criminals, damage diplomatic relationships with allies who'd been kept uninformed, and undermine public trust in military casualty reporting. Ethan refused with sealed determination forged through 20 years of operations. 89 families buried empty coffins 80 years ago, believing their fathers and brothers died at Okinawa fighting the Japanese. Commander Gallagher sealed those operational documents in a waterproof container, hoping someone would eventually find his boat and tell the complete truth about what happened. We found it. Those families deserve to know their loved ones completed their mission and died 8 miles from home. I won't participate in another cover-up. I've already failed 2 teammates. I won't fail 89 submariners. Ethan contacted families of USS Swordfish crew members through submarine veteran organizations, Navy heritage groups, and genealogical research databases. Within 2 weeks of beginning systematic outreach, 37 families responded, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of the deceased crew, ranging from their 70s to teenagers, representing 4 generations. All carried the same inherited burden, believing their ancestors died in combat at Okinawa, 7,000 miles from home, when the truth had been deliberately hidden for 8 decades for national security reasons that no longer justified continued deception. When Ethan showed the families Commander Gallagher's detailed logs and the recovered classified operational documents, their grief transformed into something profound and complex. Anger at being systematically lied to for 80 years, but also immense pride that their loved ones had died completing a classified mission that potentially shortened the Cold War by securing Nazi weapons technology before Soviet forces could claim it. The families collectively demanded the Navy tell the complete truth, properly memorialize USS Swordfish's actual final mission with accurate details, and relocate the crew's memorials from Pacific War casualty lists to reflect where they actually rest off South Carolina. Ethan partnered with the families to launch a coordinated media campaign with powerful messaging. A retired Navy SEALs K-9 partner found USS Swordfish, a submarine the Navy said was lost at Okinawa in 1945 during Pacific combat operations. The crew actually died off South Carolina, completing a classified mission so secret that their families were deliberately lied to for 80 years. They deserve the truth. The story went viral across social media, traditional news networks, and veteran advocacy platforms. Congressional hearings were demanded by multiple representatives. The Secretary of the Navy faced intense pressure from submarine heritage organizations, veteran groups, and overwhelming public sentiment, supporting truth over continued classification. After 3 months of internal Department of Defense review, involving Navy leadership, legal counsel, State Department consultation, and White House approval, the Department of Defense made an unprecedented decision: declassify Operation Valkyrie and USS Swordfish's connection to Operation Paperclip, and formally acknowledge the 80-year operational security deception. the United States Navy issued a formal written apology to USS Swordfish families, acknowledging that legitimate operational security requirements in 1945 had led to a deliberate misrepresentation of the submarine's loss location and mission circumstances that was maintained unnecessarily for 8 decades beyond any reasonable security justification. USS Swordfish's official casualty record was comprehensively updated. Lost June 12, 1945, 8 miles offshore from Charleston, South Carolina, during classified operations related to Operation Valkyrie, the precursor mission to Operation Paperclip that secured Nazi scientists and weapons technology intelligence before Soviet forces could claim them. The 89 crew members received posthumous recognition for their service, completing a mission so sensitive that their sacrifice couldn't be publicly acknowledged for 8 decades, with their service records updated to reflect accurate operational circumstances. Commander Earl T. Gallagher was posthumously awarded the Navy Cross, the Navy's second highest decoration for extraordinary valor, for his tactical decision to preserve comprehensive operational records despite knowing the truth might remain hidden indefinitely. His act of sealing classified documents in a waterproof container, betting someone would eventually find USS Swordfish and reveal what really happened, was formally recognized as extraordinary moral courage and foresight. USS Swordfish's wreck site was officially designated a protected war grave and national memorial under federal law. The Navy conducted a formal burial at sea ceremony at the site with full military honors, finally giving the 89 submariners the recognition they deserved 80 years after their deaths. 37 families attended the ceremony, bringing 4 generations spanning elderly children of crew members to young great-grandchildren, finally able to visit the actual gravesite rather than a memorial honoring a fictional location 7,000 miles away in the Pacific. Ethan received the Navy's Meritorious Public Service Award, the highest honor the Navy can bestow on civilians, for his discovery and his advocacy for the families. It marked the first time the award had been given to someone who actively opposed Department of Defense secrecy classifications on moral grounds. More importantly to Ethan personally, the families of USS Swordfish's crew collectively established a scholarship fund in Commander Gallagher's name, with Ethan named as administrator based on unanimous family decision. The fund provided educational support specifically to descendants of service members who died during classified operations, honoring those whose service couldn't always be immediately acknowledged due to national security requirements. Dr. James Holloway led a comprehensive archaeological documentation project of USS Swordfish spanning 8 months, creating detailed 3-dimensional photogrammetry models and extensive historical analysis maintained permanently at the National Museum of the United States Navy in Washington, D.C. The documentation revealed that the submarine's high-pressure air system had indeed failed catastrophically, exactly as Commander Gallagher described, confirming his final log entries were accurate in every technical detail. The forward torpedo room contained the preserved remains of Operation Valkyrie materials, documents and equipment that had helped the United States win the space race and develop advanced weapons systems during the Cold War. 6 months after the discovery, Ethan and Thor attended a formal ceremony at Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, where USS Swordfish's memorial was relocated from the Pacific Theater casualty list to a new dedicated memorial recognizing the submarine's actual final mission and sacrifice. 89 names were read aloud during the ceremony, each followed by present from assembled submarine veterans, a traditional roll call finally conducted at the correct geographic coordinates after 8 decades of deception. Thor, wearing his military working dog insignia and specialized diving vest, sat beside the memorial with professional bearing and dignified posture that honored 89 submariners who rested 110 feet below Charleston's waters just 8 miles offshore. 1 year after finding the wreck, Ethan had completely transformed his failing salvage diving business into a specialized historical maritime archaeology consultation firm, partnering with Force Blue and the Naval History and Heritage Command to document World War II shipwrecks and conduct underwater historical preservation. Thor continued diving regularly with Ethan, his detection skills now applied to locating historical artifacts, assisting with comprehensive wreck site preservation, and identifying areas of archaeological significance. Together, they'd helped document 12 additional Atlantic coast wrecks over the following year, 2 of which contained previously unknown World War II casualties. Ethan also began working formally with active duty Navy SEALs, struggling with combat trauma and survivor's guilt, using wreck diving as experiential therapy that clinical settings couldn't replicate. He shared his own story with brutal honesty. "I lost 2 teammates during a submarine extraction mission and couldn't forgive myself for 3 years. I made the tactical call that put them in the water. The Navy investigation cleared me, but I knew better." Then Thor found 89 submariners who'd been lost and lied about for 80 years. Bringing them home and fighting for their truth didn't bring my teammates back or erase my failure, but it reminded me that finishing the mission matters, even if it takes 8 decades, even if everyone thinks the mission is over and forgotten. Warriors find other warriors. We don't quit on them just because time passed and everyone else stopped caring. A documentary filmmaker producing an award-winning film about USS Swordfish and Operation Paperclip asked Ethan the question that captured widespread public fascination. What made Thor alert to USS Swordfish when the submarine had been undiscovered for 80 years, despite being located in heavily trafficked waters just 8 miles from Charleston's major port? Ethan's answer became the narrative foundation of the documentary titled 8 Miles from Home: The Secret of USS Swordfish. Thor was trained specifically to detect ordnance and explosive anomalies underwater during special operations. USS Swordfish went down with torpedoes, ammunition stores, and classified materials, all things that would trigger his specialized training even 80 years after the vessel sank. But what left me genuinely speechless wasn't finding a submarine or discovering it was swordfish. It was reading Commander Gallagher's final words and realizing 89 men died completing their assigned mission while their families were deliberately told an elaborate lie for operational security that lasted 8 decades beyond any reasonable justification. He continued, "Thor found them because military working dogs don't quit detecting just because retirement paperwork says their service careers are over. I fought for their story and challenged DoD classification because Navy SEALs don't leave anyone behind, not current teammates and not submariners from a different war who deserve the truth about their sacrifice. That loyalty across 80 years, across different conflicts, across the gap between what was classified and what was morally right, that's what left me speechless. Not the wreck itself. The refusal to let good men stay lost and lied about just because someone decades ago decided their truth was operationally inconvenient. The submarine that had rested at 110 feet depth for 80 years, passed over by countless vessels, deliberately kept off official navigation records, forgotten by everyone except families who never stopped mourning men they believed died 7,000 miles away, was found by a retired SEAL running sonar surveys and discovered by a combat German shepherd whose detection instincts refused to ignore what everyone else had sailed past for 8 decades. Commander Gallagher's desperate act of preserving his crew's truth succeeded not through official Navy acknowledgement or sanctioned investigation, but through the intersection of routine commercial diving, K9 loyalty that never retired, and one former SEAL operator's refusal to participate in another cover-up, even when his own service demanded it. 89 submariners finally came home to truth because warriors recognize other warriors' sacrifices, even across 8 decades, even through layers of classification and deliberate deception. Even when revealing the truth required challenging the same United States Navy that both Commander Gallagher and Master Chief Cross had served with honor.